Hookers.
Hookers. Brought to you by Couch on Fire. Working every corner that it can on fire. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. All right, so what's first up today, Rob?
Um. Oh, dude, we're rolling. That's awesome. I didn't
Yeah,
even know.
yeah. I
I just,
led with hookers.
I love that you always hit.
Cold
Why is
open
my?
you.
Yeah, it's great. Like you're just I have no idea where you're recording, and I'm just like, oh shit. Anyway, dude, there's so much to talk about, but the one thing that I've been doing over the weekend was I was watching. I go down. Remember we talked about going down the rabbit hole on certain things.
Yes.
I was watching Netflix, and every time start watching Netflix, I love documentaries, so I'll watch documentaries all day. I started going down the rabbit hole about UFOs and conspiracies, theories, and all this other crazy shit. And I was like, man, I would love to talk about this, and I know a lot of people probably would not like to hear about this, so fuck them. And I want to talk about this because this is pretty damn crazy. um, yeah.
So
So
so what you got? What you got?
what is what? I mean, what is your take on UFOs? Let's go straight
Okay.
for the. What is your take?
Straight up meat and potatoes here. Let me readjust my camera a little bit here because I was fucking around while you were describing that you've been down another Netflix rabbit hole.
Oh my god, I could just have a podcast talking all day long about all these fucking documentaries that I watch.
Oh boy. Okay, so UFOs. UFOs exist in that we don't know what the objects are. Do I think they're extraterrestrial in origin, which is the natural baseline question? I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
See, I just I don't want to. I
It's
wouldn't want to
not
be.
likely.
See, my thing is, I don't want to be so naive that to think that we are the all alone in this universe.
Yeah,
There's
that
just
that would be silly.
there's no way. There has to be something now. Now aliens. I mean, I feel like maybe there's another planet with people just like us, but maybe farther in the future or more in the past. It's just like, you know what, we created this. Let's create another one, but we'll do it like, light years away. Bam, bam, like
All
so
right.
far away.
So, infinite cosmos theory says yes, there are going to be infinite versions of you doing infinite different things throughout each of them, and infinite, infinite more that are where you could exist but do not for whatever reason, like the butterfly effect and all that shit.
Yeah.
And we'll just never interact with any of those in any meaningful fashion. So, as far as just extraterrestrial life existing, that's pretty much guaranteed. It's statistically impossible for it not to exist elsewhere.
Yeah.
My big question is what do the big three religions do in response? Like, what's the official word of God on the existence of extraterrestrials? How are they going to react to, hi, hey, what's up, guys? We brought some cookies. We're from a couple light years that way. We don't know if you guys can eat these or not, but we figured we'd give it a shot. Enjoy.
Well, sorry, I have something in my throat, but talking about that, like, I know people have seen movies and people have read things, and everyone's at least seen one kind of documentary or video about the theory of who came before us. Do you really, like, who lined up the pyramids, who did this, who did that, who gave the tools to,
That doesn't
you know
require aliens.
and see, my whole thing is, well, it makes me wonder though. It does, it really does. Like, everyone's believing in, like, see, this is going to slowly turn into a religious debate, and I don't want it to be, so I'm going to keep it.
Ah, bollocks that.
I'm going to keep it as best as possible. But speaking about, like, what would religion do if if aliens just came down to Earth right now? How would they explain that to all their followers? Um, I'll tell you this: my parents, well, my father's side of the family, grew up a certain religion, and in that, I'm not going to name names, but in that religion, it said that the end of the world was supposed to happen 3 years ago. So when it didn't happen,
In
I'm
2015?
yeah, I was
Specifically, not 2012, but 2015.
no 2015. Well, supposedly there's events that are supposed to happen, and if this happens, the end of the world would happen. And those events 100% happen. They even, when I talk to them, they're like, "This is happening."
Seventh day
Uh,
Adventist.
yes, and nothing happened. So, like, how do you explain that?
Did I just get that
So
first try?
maybe
Seventh day Adventist?
no, it's not.
Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints.
LDS, no. My south my. All right, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, I don't know a lot about it. I'm kind of ignorant because
No worries. There ain't no beef.
But Jehovah Witnesses.
I
My
thought that was Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints.
No, totally different.
Really?
Yeah, Jehovah Witnesses believe, like Jesus, like the LDS community believes that
Oh,
Jesus.
okay. No, excuse me. That's the other group of quasi cultists. They're the Mormons.
Yes, the
Okay.
Mormons. Yes,
Yeah.
they're the ones that they believe that Christ died on the cross. The Jehovah Witnesses do not. So I don't. Like I
What?
said, yeah. What?
How are you going to disagree with like one of the core canonical principles of Christianity? What?
That's
I'm not touching
that's-
it. Not touching
All right,
it.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to get too involved with this because when I was young, I used to go to.
Hand.
Oh, sorry. When I was young, I used to go to like Sunday school for Jehovah Witnesses because my father raised me for a little bit because my mom wasn't around. And then I moved in with my grandparents who are Catholic, so I got to experience kind of both worlds.
So you
And
correctly had that Jehovah's Witness thing beaten out of you by the Catholic nuns.
Pretty much in touch by the fathers.
For real?
No, I'm joking.
That shit was prolific, man. It happened to everybody.
I know it did. Yeah, I used to
So
tease,
glad I wasn't a Catholic.
I used to tease my grandfather all the time, but because he's like 100% Italian, grew up Roman Catholic, and I was like, oh, did they beat you? Did he touch you? Did he touch you?
Did Father Pedro touch you?
But anyway, going back to what we were talking about, they believed in something and it didn't happen. So I
Surprise.
kind of agree with you. Like, what would they do? I have no idea. But I also think that like they were here at one point in time, and I feel like
So all
there's
the
proof.
ancient civilization stuff. So if you're getting into ancient astronaut theory, a la Eric von Daniken and Chariot of the Gods, you've got some Graham Hancock in there as well. So Graham Hancock has actually rescinded his position that aliens are a relevant possibility, and is relying on instead just an advanced super civilization that was wiped out. And statistically speaking, that's a lot more probable. There's a lot less ifs that relies on.
Mhm.
So it's a more logically sound argument inherently, and it's actually pretty plausible. Like, you're clearly familiar with at least some of these arguments, being kind of a proponent of ancient astronaut theory. You think we've been visited in the past, and that's where we got all these symbols and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that
think
doesn't
that
require aliens though. That could just be us,
that
and we
could be.
forgot.
Well, do you ever think that we are the aliens? Like somehow a long, long time ago, we came here.
Now you're touching another cosmological origins of life theory that I am a proponent of. I do not think life started on Earth at all. All 5 building blocks of RNA and DNA are seen in all 5 stages of the complexity leading up until right prior to becoming RNA and or DNA, natively on meteorites. And DNA, we know for a fact, can survive re-entry. Tardigrades, the whole beings, water bears, can survive re-entry. Life hitched a ride here. It did not start here.
Do you think it's like the new Venom movie, like a symbiont coming crashing down, and it's like a little ooze thing comes out, then he slowly turns into a human.
Not quite that sci-fi.
Well, I would like to think it's like that because my fantastic brain would like to love to believe it was like.
But statistically speaking, like, so we've had issues with what is effectively the lightning strike in the primordial ooze. We can't generate the energy required to actually make DNA or RNA intra-atmospherically.
Okay.
That energy is abundant outside of the atmosphere. A single cosmic ray could just, boop, there it is. It's a matter of time before it happens. So DNA and RNA are out there floating around in space naturally because they can.
I haven't heard this, and this is like very intriguing because it's very believable. That's why it's like sparking like things up in my brain right now.
Yeah, so check out panspermia theory. I probably said that wrong. But it's a good origins of life hypothesis that I'm pretty fond of because it accounts for all the variables that can't currently be accounted for. And a lot of new data that's really fascinating. Like, how the fuck did tardigrades get on the outside of the International Space Station? Mm-hmm. What?
Dude, if you can find it, put a link on our Facebook page so everyone can see it, including myself.
Yeah, really rock and roll. I'll put it up in the Reddit and shit, too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, like, thinking about, what we just said about that, and then what we also said about religion, I was just thinking, like, I think UFOs and aliens kind of go hand in hand with the whole religion thing. All the like the weird things that happen. Like the Romans loved like Greek mythology. Like they had gods and they saw lightning and they saw lights in the sky that created things and stuff like that. Like, do you think that is just coincidence, or do you think that's like, at one point in time, long time ago, we used to get visited more than we do now, or they're just more, if we did get visited by aliens, they're just more like let's say covert ops now, like you don't see them as much.
Not likely. My position, and I can be proven wrong. I can be logicked out of this, any of 1,000 things here, but I'm gonna rely on Occam's razor. So we have 500,000 years of humans existing as humans. Modern day man existing as we do in this present form right now. That's 500,000 years. That's a long fucking time. In the past 200 years, we have gone from the printing press to interworldly travel. Like we've stepped foot on the moon. That's another world. Whether or not it's a planet, it's another world. We've stepped foot on another world. So we've gone from the printing press being the cutting edge of technology to space travel in 200 years, give or take a couple. There's no way in fucking hell, statistically speaking, because we're the same species, that hasn't occurred in the past. There's no fucking way. And here's the thing. 12,000 years ago, because the first question to that is, where's the evidence? Where is the evidence of that super advanced civilization that was beating us out in so many different ways? 12,000 years ago, there appears to have been a pan-global geologic series of events akin to the flood, the biblical flood, in fact. Given that scenario did play out, and that was the trigger to wipe out that civilization, what evidence would there be of such an event? Outside of the obvious evidence of the event itself, but it would wipe out any evidence of the preceding civilization.
Okay.
And Graham Hancock is one of the big proponents of that theory getting floated about currently.
That is, I'm just, I'm just kind of taking. It's wild to me how all this is. Sorry, it's wild to me like these theories, and then all these what would you call it? Like basically,
Hypotheses.
yes, hypotheses. All these things about this, and it just my opinion on this, and I think this will be the last opinion I have on this UFO thing right now. Is that if why like people see things, people record things, you see it all the time on the internet, you hear about it all the time on the internet. Go listening from what you're telling me about the past, about like, civilizations like going underwater, Atlantis and things like this and all this other stuff like disappearing. But
Atlantis is a presupposition unto and of, in and of
yeah,
itself.
yeah,
I made no claims about Atlantis.
I know you didn't. I'm sorry. In my magic. See, when you were talking, I was listening to you, but then I started to think like, man, this world is just this. I don't know. I started going on
We
a
know
journey with you.
so little about this planet. It is unfucking real.
I started getting on this journey, but no. So when I was watching the documentary, they were talking about UFOs. That's why I wanted to get your take on UFOs. And then but one thing that you actually touched on when we were just talking was us traveling to the moon. Now, the show is about conspiracies, and part of it was about UFOs.
Here we go.
But I think you know where I'm heading. Okay.
We did, in fact, step foot on another world.
I
There
agree.
was a lot of evidence that was, in fact, doctored, and NASA hasn't come clean about all of it.
I believe that 100%.
There was a lot that was doctored.
I just want to know why we don't go back.
That,
Why
purely
have
and
we
simply, was an economic issue.
Is that what they're telling us, or is that like what?
Well, that's an observable fact of reality. Like, the money for those programs just dried up. Like, at the time, the idea was, okay, well, we conquered that. What the fuck are we going to do now? Like, we don't have the technology to set up a colony out there, so what the fuck are we doing? Why are we wasting money, taxpayer money, that we need to prevent a Russian invasion on going to the moon? We're not going to build bunkers in the moon.
Yeah.
So what the fuck are we doing? So we stopped paying for it and we stopped going.
But what about now? What about today? What
Money.
about? But yet we're traveling, or not traveling, but we're sending stuff to Mars. We're
Yeah.
getting video on Mars. Don't
Yeah.
you want to know more about the moon? Or no?
I'm not going to say no to that. I want to know more about everything.
No, I agree with that.
Where I'm at, however, is China has been pretty clear that they're going to spearhead the colony operations there because they want the mineral resources present on the moon. Deuterium, basically, you got a bunch of isotopes of hydrogen and helium up there that are hugely valuable down here because hydrogen and helium both kind of escape out of the atmosphere. Gravity doesn't hold them well enough, so they're mega rare. And producing them is possible, but it's a pain in the ass. We could just go up to the moon and mine this shit. Like, it's super abundant up there in the lunar ice caps. So that's their plan, and they're gonna do so. Good for them on that. Like, that's awesome. I really support that effort. Let them do that though, while the West focuses on Mars. The colonies on Mars will be a lot easier, but getting to and from will be a lot more hard. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't between the two options. And I'm still not certain if China or the West has the right idea between either of them. But let's go to Mars, man. Let's step foot on Martian soil for real.
So you're 100% convinced that we should go to Mars, step on there, build a colony,
We
spend.
must colonize. Our species depends on it.
I don't.
Period. Dot. We must.
We must.
We must. Okay. So gamma ray bursts, roaming black holes are a thing.
Yeah.
Roaming starless brown dwarfs, cosmic ray death. There are millions upon billions of possible ways for the Earth to go and be gone in less than a split second, and we are not consciously aware of what happened. We're just no longer extant. It is imperative for us as a species to fucking diversify our planetary portfolio, as it were. So if Earth goes down and shits the bed, there's still people that exist.
That makes sense. Well, how? All right. If I left today and I traveled to Mars, how long would it take me to get there? What, 10 years?
No. It's a 4-month journey.
The 4-month journey.
However, that's when we're closest. However, we are working on better propulsion technology actively. JPL is doing some exciting work down in Houston and Florida with Skunkworks and Eagleworks, respectively, if I'm not mistaken. We've got propulsion tech on the rise. We've got some coming up on the horizon, and that trip, 4 months at the closest possible launch point, and that's if launch conditions are perfect on Earth, if they're perfect en route, and if they're perfect on Mars. That's impossible, statistically speaking. It's not going to happen. So, give or take to 6 months, and that's a really huge detriment and toll on the human body. Scott Kelly is kind of evidence to that. Like, he had severe skeletal degeneration. Not to the point where it, like, crippled him or anything. Like, he's back up in flight health now.
Now, I don't know who Scott Kelly is. I'm sorry.
He was the astronaut that spent a year on the International Space Station.
Okay. So, but he was awake that whole year. He wasn't like in sleep or anything like that.
We don't have a good cryotech yet.
Okay. No, I mean, do you think that if we developed a cryotech and travel to Mars, that would be more beneficial for us because then we can just sleep for 6 months?
Consciously speaking, that would be better for our psyches.
Mm-hmm.
Health-wise, there's little to no difference.
Okay, because our body would still need nutrients. It's still.
Well, even given that we could like figure out how to handle the nutrients, and a good cryo is the metabolism is off and in stasis, not dead, but just in stasis, and it's possible to do that with human cells. It's just a very particular temperature range and everything else. It's really hard to pull off. We're doing some tests in Pittsburgh right now, actually, effectively putting crash victims, I'll say, crash pseudo-survivors, almost probable survivors, under, basically they pump out all their blood with a dialysis machine and replace it with 50-degree Fahrenheit saline, salt water, basically, and bring your
These people are still alive.
I haven't seen the data come out of it yet.
Okay.
But the preliminary tests actually looked really good. You can genuinely find a stasis point at 50-degree Fahrenheit with the blood to saline switch. So like you're off, but you're not dead.
Damn.
So,
okay.
So that's an exciting test they're doing with crash survivors right now in Pittsburgh. They might have wrapped up those trials, actually. I haven't heard anything. Right now, they're at the stage where they're trying to see if they can't prolong the range. Like, oh, God, I've got a steering column in my chest. You switch out all the blood for saline, the body shuts off and it expands your window of operation time from like 8 minutes to make them survive to like 8 hours at the same survival rate chance. Yeah, which is wild. It gives us so much more time to be able to handle these emergencies in an efficient and life-saving way.
See, this is shit that I think the general public should know. You should be
Yeah, they're
like
doing
this.
cryo research
Well,
in Pittsburgh.
Fuck Pittsburgh, by the way.
10 out of 10 agreed.
Yeah. No, like so. That's just crazy to me that they're testing some shit out. No, I knew that they're obviously, you know, scientists are testing things and they're doing things and they're trying to evolve things. Here's a scenario, or however you want to say it.
I have tasty niblets. Bring them
on. Have you ever thought that, you know, us doing this, us trying to prepare for, you know, the world ending, but trying to colonize on another planet, did you ever think that that's how Earth happened? Like we were talking about before, like, do you ever think that humans were on another planet a long time ago, and like millions and millions and millions of years ago, and their planet was dying, and they were like, well, we need to find another planet, and on the way to another planet they got sucked into a black hole, ended up in our universe, landed on Earth, and then we are the aliens. You ever think about that?
Way too many presuppositions required in that argument.
I'm just
Check
saying.
this out though.
Okay.
My specific thought, because I've had that question, like, we're probably not from around these parts.
Yeah.
And the question is, well, where did we come from then? Homo sapiens, in one form or another, have been around for a long time, but not long enough to be geologic epochs. I'm thinking that geologic epochs ago start getting into like astronomical spans of time, which make so. Are you familiar with the idea of a geologic epoch?
I am not.
Okay.
So please enlighten me.
Millions upon millions upon millions of years. I think the smallest epoch I'm familiar with is that's confirmed and like stated and good, cleared by all the scientific community, is about 10 million years. So, a ginormous span of time. Astronomical time makes that look like seconds. We're talking billions of years at that point. Excuse me. So, it just pales in comparison. So, there was a time when Mars was much cooler, and actually much more stable environmentally. The sun was younger and it burned a little hotter back then. It's kind of simmered down as it became a working, responsible adult as far as the star cycle is concerned.
Reminds me of that cheese commercial. You ever seen that cheese commercial?
No.
When there's a roll of cheese, and it's basically saying it tells jokes, and the person's like, it's not ready yet, because it just keeps telling all these crappy cheesy jokes because it's not matured enough yet to become a Cheez-It. Sorry, you go on. If you saw the commercial, you would understand it.
I avoid TV for the commercial specifically.
Okay, here we go. Going back. So Mars was a cooler place, and the sun was younger and brighter.
Yeah, so the sun burned hotter, meaning that the Goldilocks zone was a little further out, closer to the Mars range, rather than the Earth range. So a thought that's wholly unprovable, untestable, so I dismiss it as such. But wouldn't that be cool if scenario is that life as we know it in this solar system did originate on Mars, having hitched a ride via some meteorite somewhere, came to Mars, took off, that civilization, or that planet rather, came to the end of its days, realized what was going on, and just shot off a bunch of rockets in a billion different directions containing as much DNA as possible, hoping something took root somewhere.
And that somewhere was Earth.
I think that was one of the scenarios.
So, with that scenario, then, do you think that there's DNA on other planets?
I absolutely think that there is active living DNA on Mars. I think there's active living DNA on Europa, Io, Titan. Basically, pick a world-sized moon of Jupiter or Saturn. There's no doubt in my mind that life exists actively, is alive this moment there right now.
Do you ever think we'll make it past Mars and go to those moons?
Yes, but I don't think that's for a long time coming.
That won't be our lifetime.
Fuck no. Hey, guess what? Hey, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt, it's a good stop time.
Okay, well, that was good.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good jumping off point, as wild as that was. Any closing thoughts?
I would say this. If I wouldn't be naive to think that we're alone in this whole universe. So I feel like people that are still listening to this episode, if you made it to the end, I want to say thank you. And just remember that we are not the only ones out there. And I agree with Alex and a lot of the things that he was saying about DNA possibly being on other planets. So that's crazy to think. And don't go down the hole of Netflix, whatever you do.
The Sphinx is significantly older than the Greater Pyramids.
Dude,
Simple erosion math says it's predates it by at least 10,000 years.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could sit here and talk about all these like buildings and all these things that were built. Like, there's no way people built that shit. And if they did,
wrong. That is possible. The pyramids with Egyptian tech, absolutely possible. What's not is the Sphinx having those erosion patterns and the building right next to it, the Great Pyramid of Giza, not having those weather patterns. Aries dinging me. What a perfect time to hit the button on this episode.
Well, thank you.
Love you guys.